The American frontier was a brutal environment. It was a land where there were few or no laws. So John Colter's Indian Hunt, the horrific tragedy of Donna, and at the very end, John Heath and the Bisby massacre. The shocking truth about the history of the greatest country in the world. Subscribe to our channel and don't forget to watch our other videos. John Colter and the Manhunt. John Colter, a legend of the American frontier, spent most of his life in the wilderness. In 1803, he joined the Lewis and Clark expedition, where he became known as one of the best hunters and scouts. Many people believe he was the first white man to see Jackson Hole and Yellowstone Lake. Later, people dubbed Yellowstone and the neighboring regions Colter's Hell, due to his descriptions of the bubbling water and other geothermal activity for which the area is known. After the expedition, Colter worked for the Missouri Fur Company and was sent on a scouting trip to warn Native American tribes that the company was heading their way and wanted to trade. In 1809, Colter was captured by Blackfeet warriors. They stripped him and took everything from him and then told him he could leave. Colter could not believe his success until he realized that he had just become a participant in a horrible game of hunting people for fun. But the Blackfeet made a mistake. Colter didn't become a victim, he began his hunt for them. Moreover, he did not just get his revenge, but ran away from the best warriors of the tribe, returning to civilization after 200 miles walking barefoot. The mysterious death of David Lunt. One evening in January 1877, David Lunt, a resident of Deadwood, North Dakota, decided to relax in a local saloon. The man did not even realize that this was the last night he could consider himself a normal person. After all, the incident that happened to him radically changed his life, and David Lunt himself could start counting down the last days. At the same time, a group of local ruffians entered the salon and, having gotten drunk, began to harass the visitors who did not like them. Naturally, the local marshal could not pass by and tried to calm the rowdies down, but his actions only made the rowdies more angry, so much so that one of them fired his revolver and hit David Lunt directly in the forehead. And then, a miracle happened. Instead of dying, David Lunt calmly got to his feet and went home, not even noticing that he had a hole in his head, with which he lived for another 67 days. Eventually, the man became ill, complained of a severe headache and died. However, the bullet was removed from his head. According to the doctor who performed the autopsy, it formed a terminal brain abscess, but neither he nor even modern doctors can explain why David Lunt did not die immediately. The horrific tragedy of Donna Party. The story of the Donna Party is a horrific one of suffering, starvation, and cannibalism. In 1846, a group of 89 people, led by Jacob and George Donner, left Springfield, Illinois, to start a new life in California. But things didn't go as planned at the initial stage of the journey when members of the Paiute tribe stole or killed most of the group's livestock, including horses. But this was only the beginning of their troubles. Trying to find a shortcut, Donner and his men got lost and did not have time to cross the Sierra Nevada before the frost, so they were forced to stop for the winter near Lake Truckee, where the horror began. Food became scarce, diseases began to spread, and people began to die. At first, Donner's party ate the dead, but soon the killings began, and those who had not yet lost the remnants of humanity decided to go in search of help. Making snowshoes out of vines, only a few people out of the 20 who set out crossed the river. The last survivor of Lake Truckee was rescued in April 1847. Hugh Glass. A story that has become a legend. In 2015, the world saw another movie masterpiece with Leonardo DiCaprio, The Revenant, and few people realized that the movie was based on the fate of the legendary frontline scout Hugh Glass. In 1823, Hugh Glass, along with his two fellow fur trappers, John Fitzgerald and Jim Bridger, was hunting in South Dakota when a bear attacked and fatally wounded Hugh. Although the man managed to survive, his companions decided to write him off, and instead of helping him, they dug him a grave and left him alone to die. And he succeeded, overcoming 320 miles of dense forests full of wild animals, dodging Arikara Nation and other dangers. He met a bunch of Lakota who helped him get to Fort Kiowa, where the French had already given him help and agreed to house him. It seemed that Glass was lucky, but no, fate again threw him a test, forcing him to wander for a long time along the frontier. Until, in January 1824, on New Year's Eve, he reached Fort Henry, where he found Jim Bridger. But instead of taking revenge, he forgave him and John Fitzgerald. The Whittaker Scalping. Can you survive being scalped? It turns out you can. The story of Josiah P. Whittaker proves it. In August 1833, he and his party exploring the land of Austin were attacked by Comanches. 2 men were killed and 2 managed to escape. As for Whittaker, arrows pierced both of his legs and a bullet hit him in the neck from behind. Stunned by his injuries, he lay conscious but motionless while the Comanche assessed the scene. One of the warriors scalped Whittaker and left him for dead. Later, Whittaker woke up in agony and saw his sister Margaret, who assured him that help would come. Meanwhile, the survivors of the attack informed Reuben Hornsby, a neighboring settler, of their friend's death. That night, Reuben's wife Sarah woke up twice from visions of a wounded Whittaker clinging to life under an oak tree. Sarah begged her husband to find Whittaker, and of course they found the severely injured man. Whittaker subsequently recovered and lived with a cap on his skull for about 11 years, until one day he hit a damaged spot on a beam which provoked a fatal infection. Robbery in Bisby and lynching of John Heat, the outlaw. In 1883, 5 armed men entered the town of Bisby, Arizona to rob a local bank. The robbers believed that the bank kept payroll records of hundreds of miners working for the Copper Queen Mining Company. However, the thieves miscalculated the timing of the robbery. The salaries had not yet been transferred to the bank. Taking what they could, the bandits left the bank and were immediately involved in a shootout on the streets of Bisby. When the fight was over, 3 townspeople and a pregnant woman were dead. The gang quickly got on their horses and left town. John Heath organised a posse from the town to track down and apprehend the bandits. However, thanks to the work of the detectives, all 5 bandits were eventually found and arrested. All 5 robbers were sentenced to death. The convicts died as a result of the largest mass hanging in Arizona. John Heath, who was tried separately, was only sentenced to life in prison because all 5 bandits preferred to deny his involvement during the trial. An angry mob broke into the prison, took Heath outside, and lynched him on a telegraph pole. The history of the United States is very complicated and unpredictable, filled with grief and suffering. It tells of the heroic deeds and feats of small people who created the greatest country in the world. So, although Americans are a young nation and do not have a great